Engage for Success Radio, raising the profile of employee engagement and shining a light on good practice for people who believe there's a better way to work.
Good afternoon and welcome to Engage for Success Radio show number 599. I can't believe we're nearly at 600. This week is Designing ADHD-Friendly Work Environments. I'm Jo Dodds, your host for today. I'm an engagement consultant working within the Engage for Success core team. The Engage for Success movement is an inclusive movement committed to the idea that there is a better way to work by releasing more of the capability and potential of people at work. We spread the word about employee engagement and shine a light on good practice, inspiring people and workplaces to thrive, and we're widely supported across the UK, involving the public, private and third sectors. If you go to our website, which is engageforsuccess.org, and use the link at the bottom of the page, you can join our newsletter list, and all our social media links are there too. My guest today is Mendelson, who's a career coach. Welcome, Shell. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much, Jo. It's wonderful to be here. Look forward to talking.
Excellent. We'll start by telling us a bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay, big question.
Yes.
Officially, my title is ADHD career coach. And I have been a career coach and counselor for over 35 years. I was trained by the famous, we call him the grandfather of career coaching, Richard Bowles, who wrote the book, What Color is Your Parachute? I was trained by him many years ago and carried on in his image the best I could by doing the parachute method with my clients for many years. And when I was diagnosed late in life with ADHD, I then realized that the people I wanted to serve were neurodivergent people like myself. So I have been doing that, offering the Your Next Career Move MasterClass and helping people find career direction and to feel fantastic in what they're doing, to feel engaged in what they're doing. And that's been my life's work. So
That's great to hear. So I guess my first question before we sort of dive into the work environment sort of discussion is, did anything change for you as a coach other than your sort of target market, if you like, after your diagnosis? So you've been coaching all along. How did that diagnosis sort of change, if at all, your actual coaching and outlook, I guess?
that's a great question. And it's also part of what I have added to my own instruction in teaching with the people that I work with. Since I was diagnosed late in life, I had started a company called Kids Art it's a franchise system. We were in 38 states and 15 countries. We were doing very well. And before that, I had been doing this work in career coaching with everyone, both neurotypical and, as it happens, neurodivergent people. I was also doing vocational rehabilitation, but true to form, we are very creative, entrepreneurial types. And I had the bright idea to start a franchise system for a children's art program because my son loved art, and I just kind of downloaded the idea one day in my brain. I woke up to the name Kids Art. I just said, okay, it's time to think about doing this because it kept coming up over and over again. So I did this for several years, and I was the CEO and founder. I brought people together. We had, like I said, it was fairly successful, and we were in 15 countries, and we were doing very well. And but I became very miserable in my work because I was no longer doing the things in the day to day of the work that were engaging, that were fun. I was no longer feeling creative. I was no longer actually getting to be myself and to use the skills that I really enjoy using. And I couldn't put my finger on what was going on, but I was also undiagnosed. So everybody that I worked with was neurotypical, and yet I always felt like an outsider. I always felt like people didn't really understand me or my ideas. It was difficult to get across some of the things that I wanted to communicate with them because they didn't always take me seriously. And I became very it was very distressing, and it was during that time that I basically left the franchise. It just wasn't working for me anymore, and as a result, I got diagnosed at that time because I knew something was off, something wasn't right,
Hmm.
and I realized again that it was because I am a career coach and counselor. I had kind of put that part of me down for a while, and now it was time to come back to doing the work that I truly was meant to be doing, which is this work I do now. And I started again working with a client who had ADHD, and then I continued to work working with individuals who were ADHD clients,
Hmm.
and then I got I put the group together. I put the Your Next Career Move Masterclass together, and haven't looked back. That's been kind of my the thing that I love doing the most, working with
Hmm.
small groups in career direction. And I wrote the course book for that, and it's been fairly successful, and love doing it. Never look back. Uh, I realized that the kids art journey for me was actually what I call a mission. It wasn't my life's purpose. It was
Hmm.
something I was meant to do, but it was not something I was meant to carry on and for the rest of my working days.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how I came to it. It was late in life, and I discovered, whoop, things aren't working out. I better go back to doing what I love. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so again, we'll talk about the sort of move on to talk about this sort of environment, but and sort of follow on question to that, I suppose, is do the people that you're coaching now who have ADHD, then sort of neurodiverse, is the way that you coach them different to how you would have coached people before? Have you had to adjust your coaching style?
Quite a bit actually, because when I realized that people actually it was very simple for me to do, but I did adjust it because people who are neurodiverse, we have very specific needs, and we need to address certain aspects of
Hmm.
identifying the proper career direction, the proper fit for ourselves, right?
Hmm.
And by that I mean it has to be very much very authentic. It has to come straight from the heart. It can't be something that is impacted or influenced by other people. It has to be engaging. It has to be somewhat fun. It has to be meaningful and purposeful. There's so many things that we address that I addressed with everyone before, but the biggest piece of it was the part that we're going to talk about, which is what I call self accommodation,
Hmm.
uh, which was how the conditions under which people with who are neurodivergent need to work. And again, it's not any one thing. It's very specific to that individual, and yet it needs to be addressed in detail.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it can't be just something that's like a sweeping kind of thing. Everybody's conditions are different. They need to look different, and they need to be in basically identified. When I say in detail, I mean in great detail. So that's what we do. That's what we do.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Cool. So let's talk a bit about the environmental challenges that exist in workplaces that are causing issues for people who are ADHD.
Some of the environment, well, one of the exercises I have people do is called working conditions I dislike, where I have them list all of the conditions, both physical and non-physical. By physical, I mean how the place that you're sitting, the office that you're in, the space that you're in, the the desk, the type of computer you use, all of the equipment you use, your surroundings, your physical surroundings. So anything that's physically oriented towards the work you do, including like the lighting, the flooring, the colors on the wall, everything. Some people are very sensitive to like things like light.
Hmm.
Some people are sensitive to sounds, so they may need headphones, or they may need to be in environments that are quieter.
Yeah.
Most people need some type of flexibility so they can move around. They can get up when they need to get up. They can't be and not followed when they're getting up. They need to just be able to get up and stretch and take a few steps.
Hmm.
Maybe to get a cup of coffee, go to the bathroom, or just even go into a room where they can do their work in another space. Some people need to work hybridly, like part time in the office, so they're connecting with other people and part time at home. Quite a few people who are neurodivergent really do prefer work at home, but even the home environment can be tricky. You've got to really understand what your needs are there so that you can stay productive and focused. So those are the
Yeah.
physical pieces. The non-physical are things like culture, understanding, like is it neurodiverse friendly? In other words, are people willing to listen to you ask for certain conditions, or just explain what those conditions would be under which you would do your best work, under which you would be
Hmm.
the most productive, right? So
Yeah.
culture is one thing. Some people prefer to be in a diverse kind of situation. Some people more prefer more structure. Other people prefer a more informal environment. And some people need instruction, clear instruction. Other people like to take off with an assignment and be creative, but be allowed to be creative. So some people like to
Hmm.
work in teams and certain types of teams and certain types of projects. And when we go through the whole process, we identify the type of skills you need to be using, the type of people you need to be working with. The conditions, like I said, are probably one of the biggest pieces of it.
Hmm.
And we talk about industries and fields and what I call fields of fascination, so that if you're making a change, to really look at maybe what are some of the industries that you're fascinated with, but you never actually thought about working for them. And now you can explore some of those. So there's a big exploration piece, defining who you are, and being able to articulate that, say, to an employer in an interview. So it becomes very important to have this information so you can really discover whether or not this is the best fit, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And for the employer, it's great because they now have somebody who actually can tell them what they need to be the most productive and do their best work. So that is kind of the whole ball game here that we really explore and define.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Some of the stuff that you say, if you think about it from an employer point of view, just sounds to me like the sort of thing that it would be useful to do with employees, full stop, whether they're neurodivergent or not. how
Yes.
how easy is it to get managers to sort of take these things into consideration when, as I say, I sort of think they ought to be doing that anyway, but in these cases they really need to, otherwise there's
Yeah.
potential issue with performance and so on.
Yeah, going back to what you said about it's good for everything, I always say whatever's good for people that are neurodivergent is 100% good for everyone,
Mm,
because
mm,
it just breaks it down more. It just gives it more space and allows it to just kind of be there in detail, right? But
yeah.
as far as managers are concerned, it really depends on that person, and it depends on if they're matched up with the right employee to work with. And
Hmm.
so that one's a tough one, I think, because a lot of what comes out of these conditions exercise, where you write down all the conditions you dislike,
Hmm.
um, and people you dislike working with. That's another exercise. We Characteristics of people you dislike working with. So one characteristic would be a manager who doesn't listen, a manager who expects them to read their mind, a manager who's not uh, really interested in who they are, or they just want to get the work done, or whatever they give them a project, they don't explain it. Some people need to have clearer instructions.
Hmm.
They need to be able to. I'll give you an example of something that happened to me personally years ago when I first started my career. Was I worked for a company, I worked for a corporate. I was in the vocational rehabilitation wing of big insurance company, right? And they demanded that we complete these forms that had nothing to do with my work. And I was always one of these people that if it wasn't related to my work, I would always kind of be resistant to doing it.
Yeah.
So that resistance showed up as my not doing it at all until I had my manager walk in the office and say, Shelley, why aren't you doing this form that's required? And I said, well, her name was Phyllis. I said, well, Phyllis, it has no meaning or use for me. There's no purpose in doing it for me. So I'm not going to do it. I was very rebellious, I guess. And because I was kind of a superstar at what I did and I was making them money, they didn't care. So she walked out and said, oh, okay. She never made me do it. But then I know. So I think that when you're really good at what you do, and you really are in the right fit. That's a key. You have to be in the right fit, the
Yeah.
right position for you. You do such good work that often things are overlooked that may be kind of little detail things that are generally required, but if they become a big bugaboo to the person who is neurodivergent, then there needs to be some workarounds there. Like, do you really need to do it? Or how about this? The manager would go in for 10 minutes once a week, and go over this form with the employee so that they're getting, okay, this is our time together. Anything else you want to talk about? And let's get this form done, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's one way to address it. But
Mm.
it just depends on really, because we tend to resist things that we don't like doing. Uh, so it's not that we don't do them or can't do them. It has nothing to do with our ability. It has to do with that resistance to doing it, which can come out in the form of maybe missed deadlines or um, just things taking longer than they should to
Mm-hmm.
do. And when this happens over and over again, there's the only reason it's happening is because the fit is not the best fit for that person.
Yeah.
It's kind of black and white that way. It really is. There's
Yeah.
no there's nothing wrong with a person. So what happens to a lot of people that are neurodivergent that don't understand this is that they feel shamed. They
Mm.
feel like there's something wrong with them. Like other people can do this stuff, why can't they?
Yeah.
And so they feel like it's on them that there's something wrong. And I always say it's not. There's nothing wrong with you, and there's nothing wrong with your intelligence, your skills, your abilities. It's just the wrong fit for you.
Mm. Mm. So if we think about managers and them wanting to support ADHD team members, but they don't know where they should sort of start, what do you think? What advice have you got for them?
The first word that comes to mind is listen. You know,
Mm-hmm.
ask and listen. What are the conditions that would allow you to get this work done in a timely manner or efficiently or in a focused kind of way?
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So, and really be willing to sit down and listen to what they have to say. Sorry, I might need some water.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Right.
Yeah, just
Um, mhm.
be willing to listen. And I know that's not always possible when you're under a time crunch, but I think
Mhm.
that if there's a way to schedule the time in, just put it on the calendar and go and sit down and say, I notice these things are happening. I want to help. Let's figure out how we can make this work. What are the conditions that you need? Do you need more time to do this thing? And you might hear something like, is it I would prefer to do more of this task than this task. Is it possible? Is it
Mhm.
possible to maybe switch tasks with a coworker or allow me to do more of this thing that I know that I can do really well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That may or may not be possible within the context of the work. So ultimately, there could be another fit within the company that would be a better fit.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that could be a solution as well. But it always needs to start out with listening and seeing if there's like a win-win kind of situation for that
Yeah.
person. And often when people feel like they're not getting judged, they're not getting the side eye, if you know what I mean, or the eye
Mm-hmm.
roll, and they're feeling like that person really is listening to them, then they can be more open to having a conversation about it. But I think
Mm.
because so many people feel that shame and they try and mask, you've heard that term masking,
Mm-hmm.
they try and kind of mask their how they're really feeling at any given time, or how they're, try and do things, try and fit a square peg in a round hole is
Mm.
generally what it ends up being. They try and make it work, and it doesn't always work. And that's
No.
simply because it doesn't work. And managers will tell you, yeah, this person is just, they're getting ready to put them on the performance improvement program.
Yeah.
Right.
It's interesting what you say, as you say, about sort of identifying what works for you and what, what your sort of purpose is. Because I think in the UK there's because of disability and so on, we have to make reasonable adjustments in situations, which, is the right thing to do without having legislation for it. But I think sometimes that then can put the onus on the organisation to do things differently, with
Yeah.
because it's difficult to have a conversation with the individual to say, actually, is this the right thing? Because it can be seen to be discriminating, or that you're trying to sort of pressure them to do something different. And actually, as you say, sometimes that might be the better thing. And I guess that it becomes
Yeah.
a
It's
focus on
almost,
trying to change things in the job rather
yeah.
than change the person.
I know. Well, it may look like they're treating one person differently than another person, and why can't that, the coworkers say, well, they're getting this, and why can't I have that
Hmm.
kind of thing?
Hmm. Hmm.
I understand that. I don't know that there's any get around with that, except that we're trying to, you know, meet the needs of a person who has certain conditions that they need met in order to get this work done efficiently and for
Hmm.
them to be productive. And it doesn't mean that, we're not listening to you, neurotypical person, but it's important, I think, for everybody to understand that if you are going to be neurodivergent friendly, that sometimes it's not always going to look fair.
Mm.
But
Mm.
it doesn't mean that you're discriminating. You're just trying to get the best out of your employees, the best you can.
Mm.
And of course, they should listen to everyone. But uh, with people who are neurodivergent, I mean, it's not just, can I have thing something better for me just because I want something better. It's it's a real thing that the
Mm.
conditions are important to feel connected to what they're doing, and to get them engaged in what they're doing. And I think when they are, you're going to find that they're going to be the best employees.
Mm.
They're not going to go down to the bottom. They're going to soar to the top. So a neurodivergent employee who is engaged and really really working within the conditions that will allow them to be who they are, essentially, you're going to have the best fit. I mean, the best product, the most productivity. You're going to get the best results from that person.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I think a lot of people are, I don't know, disproportionately put into the PIP programs who are neurodivergent because the fit is the wrong fit. And
Mm.
before that happens, hopefully there would be some kind of a conversation about, how is this job working for you, in terms of, does this feel like the kind of position that you want to continue working in? Are there is there maybe something else that might be a better fit for you? That could be a
Mhm.
possibility. Um,
Mm.
or you can send them to me and I can help them. That's what I do. I want to work with employers, have if they value their neurodivergent employee, those are the ones that I can help them that's what I do. That's the work I do. I can help them
Mm.
be able to articulate what they need, because very often they're scared to say what they need. They're just afraid. Because
Yes. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of fear behind, there's, because of what's going on in the job market today. we all know things are different now. There's, the whole DEI thing has come into question. And I think
Hmm.
people are just afraid that they're kind of tiptoeing around the issue. And I'm just going to be honest here. It needs to be addressed because I think the, the pool of employees that are incredible, extraordinary, are being kind of put to the bottom of the barrel because of that. And when they
Mm.
go into those PIP programs, they come to me, and when I see them in those after those programs, I have to scrape them off the floor. Their confidence is so low,
Yes.
and it's
Yeah. Yeah.
unnecessary. It is unnecessary because there's no reason for anyone to feel that way about who they are or what they're doing. It's just it's the wrong position.
Yeah.
So just having that understanding from the manager that there could be either a better fit or better conditions,
Hmm.
or switching tasks or doing something giving more flexibility to like moving around or having breaks at a different time or being able to, there's just certain
Yeah.
conditions that will make it easier for that person to sit down and focus on what they're doing.
Yes. Yeah. And I feel like it's a real sort of partnership. I know I had a company I worked with where there was a discussion with somebody who had a ADHD about putting instructions in writing, and the senior manager said, yes, everyone needs to do that, we need to make this reasonable adjustment. And I was saying, well, but on occasions where that didn't happen, the person would it would be good for them to put in writing what they think they've understood of the request and send it to the person asking the question. And the discussion was, oh, no, we need to make those reasonable adjustments, so we need to put it in writing. And of course, what happened, the first person who asked that person to do something verbally and didn't put it in writing was that senior manager. Because pragmatically it's really hard to do that every time when you've got requests of people. And so, coming at it from both directions seemed to make sense to me. Ideally put it all in writing, but if as the person who needs it in writing, you haven't got it in writing, then you put it in writing and go back and double check with them that that's, what was in place. So it sort of feels like a partnership and an open and honest conversation is a real key part of it.
Very key, very key.
Mm.
You just pretty much nailed it. Yeah, that's so key. I mean, putting things in writing is really helpful, but bullet pointing, bulleting those things, lots of space in between.
Yes, yeah.
Not single space, small writing, huge paragraphs, but just bullet pointing the instructions, and giving some timelines. Some people work really well with deadlines. I know I do. If someone gives me a deadline, boy, I've done it like days in advance. That's how I am. Other people maybe don't like deadlines as much, but I think it's important to find out what the conditions are that are going to make it easier for that person to get what they need to get done.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Cheryl. It's been really interesting talking to you today. That's literally our 30 minutes. It's gone by in a flash.
Wow, that was fast. Okay.
So thank you very much. And just to let listeners know, next week Jo Moffat is coming back and she's talking to Sarah Catherine Schmidt, and they're talking about AI for HR. So that sounds like a very topical topic for next week. Very topical topic.
Engage for Success Radio, raising the profile of employee engagement and shining a light on good practice for people who believe there's a better way to work.